And now, the Lowe Post.
Welcome to the Lowe Post podcast where, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to lower our voices, put on our sunglasses, which I don't have with me, and say the three most anticipated words in the history of NBA niche podcasts. What up, Beck?
What up, Zach? What's going on, man? You will be happy to know, and I'm previewing, I'm alluding too soon to this, but you'll be happy to know that in a recent mission to go report on a story, I was sitting courtside at Warriors practice, speaking to a Warriors player that I am writing about, which should be coming out soon.
It's a good tease. We didn't even have to tease it at the end. But we're teasing it at the beginning.
There's a point to this, because while I was sitting there, all of a sudden I heard a, "What up, Beck?"
Steph Curry?
Steve Kerr.
Oh.
Steve's down, man. Steve is so down with the podcast and all of the podcast lingo.
In a way, I'm almost disappointed. I thought you were going to surprise me like Steph Curry was a secret Low Post podcast listener. Steve Kerr,
yeah,
he's come on the podcast before.
He's okay.
It's fine, whatever.
He got the Rudy Tomjanovich Award from the media, so you would hope he's actually paying attention to the media.
Highly coveted among NBA coaches.
Oh, it should be.
Hopefully there's no, you know how every coach of the year gets fired every other year. Maybe hopefully there's no like Rudy Tomjanovich curse.
I have not checked that one.
I still can't get over the Raptors saying "Congrats, Coach" to Dwayne Casey.
Oh my God!
I'm sorry. I'm sure I know the person who wrote that tweet, and I feel bad for making fun of it. It's not a good idea.
How about of all the weird stuff that came out of the Coaches Association's Coaches Award, which went to Dwayne Casey, all of the immediate, there were many bad things or goofy, weird things that came out of that announcement, among which was the deep conspiracy theory that the coaches did this with this specific timing in mind to try to save Casey or somehow make it more awkward for the Raptors to fire him.
Was that conspiracy theory ever debunked?
I mean, are you embracing it?
Yeah.
Really?
I embraced it at the time. I haven't seen it debunked. Now, I haven't been on debunk alert against the playoffs. All I'm doing is watching basketball and rewatching basketball. So if it was debunked, I am unaware of it. But in my mind, in the Lowe household, it's bunked. It remains bunked.
It has not been debunked. Wow, I didn't realize you were living in the dark NBA web with Jason Concepcion.
Oh yeah, deep in the dark.
That's good stuff.
Okay, now I'm going to reference this. I'm going to be honest. This is an elaborate attempt at a reverse jinx, as my old boss Bill would do. You wrote a piece a couple weeks ago on Mike D'Antoni. Not a couple, like 7 days ago, 8 days ago. I don't know. At some point during the playoffs on Mike D'Antoni.
Start of the conference finals. Yeah, right before game one.
So 4 weeks ago. On his evolution from pace and space revolutionary to 16 seconds or more, or 16 seconds or less, whatever it is. You titled the story 7 seconds or more. He had a joke in there about 16 seconds or less is now our new motto. Yes. And I have to say, the conference finals suck.
Yeah.
Like, these games are just bad. And it's not just because of the scoring margins. First of all, Cleveland-Boston, the second part of this podcast, we'll talk about Cleveland-Boston Game 4 and how the Cavs are unprecedented in their just maddening. Everything about them is maddening at all times. That game last night was like, I almost wanted, I'd rather have garbage time than this fake, like, oh, the Celtics are hanging around down by 12 and there's 70,000 free throws being shot and the game is 2 hours and 55 seconds. Just die.
Yeah.
Just roll over and die so I can crack open my fat tire that I've been holding in the fridge all night and have it.
Also, it's the cruelest kind of game. First of all, selfishly, if you're a reporter, I was not there last night. I was not on Deadline. I don't really do a lot of Deadline anymore. But if you're a reporter, those games drive you up the freaking wall because you're sitting there going, I know what my lead is. I've got it. Whatever. Series is tied. It's now best of 3. LeBron is God. We're here we go again. And then it's, it's down to 7. Oh, no, it's down to 6. And then you just lose your mind. It's bad. It's cruel for fans. If you're a Cavs fan, you are this close, holding up his fingers close together.
Yes.
You are this close to, we're tied. Man, we're actually going to do this. We're back. And if you're the Celtics fans, you're like, man, I am so scared of this series going to a tie. We need to be up 3-1, and we're this close to maybe reversing this. Like those games, you think it's over, and then it's just this long, just torturous tease down the last several minutes.
It was boring. It was a boring basketball game.
Yeah,
and I don't
it's the wrong kind of tension.
And part of the reason, then we will transition. Part of the reason it was boring is I've heard and seen all these takes about, the Celtics should be encouraged. You know, they won the last 3 quarters of the game. This is the Cleveland Cavaliers. You give them a 17-point lead, and they just stop trying. Like they tried just enough to win by 9. So I don't care that the Celtics won the last 3 quarters because Cleveland has like 4 different gears. Really try hard, which is 3 to 5% of the time, other than when their backs are against the wall. Try kind of hard, regular season, and dead. And so like dead was the second half of game 2 was dead. And so they were somewhere between gears 2 and 3. Anyway, so there's a certain irony. And this links to your wonderful D'Antoni story that everyone should read, where you throw Mike's old words back in his face. There's a certain, and I think it's a little bit troubling for the league, there's a certain irony in the most anticipated playoff matchup of the year. Maybe, the Cleveland Golden State matchups were pretty damn anticipated. I was going to say maybe in several years. And the basketball between Houston and Golden State is objectively superlative, just very high-level basketball. There's a certain troubling irony in the clash of the Titans turning into just one-on-one. Like the apex of basketball turns out to be everyone switches everything and everyone just goes one-on-one all the time. And it's like kind of not exciting to watch.
No, which was even what led me to the Rocket story in part, aside from the sheer irony and oddity of Mike D'Antoni going ISO-heavy basketball, was that my own bias, and there's a lot of us this way now in this. I mean, your basketball taste, your basketball aesthetics evolve based on teams that you grew up watching or that you covered or that an era of basketball that you watch, whatever it is. And the best thing about this era, as opposed to the early 2000s, and I started covering the league in the late 90s, the early 2000s, this was why we had the rule changes, right? The game had bogged down. Everything was one-on-one. Everything was isolation, but it was with the old illegal defense rules where you could literally send 8 players to the far side of the court, and it was just 2 guys going mano-a-mano.
Yeah.
And that was boring as shit. And nothing, the game, there was no flow. There was no passing. All the beautiful offense that we now talk about that Mike D'Antoni helped spark in Phoenix and that the Warriors epitomized, the Spurs epitomized, several other teams. That's what we were looking for. And so, yes, to your point, we now have the Warriors who have been at their best, the epitome of ball movement and beautiful offense, in this slog with this Rockets team that's just muddying everything up with an offense that Mike D'Antoni, I am convinced 13 years ago, would have cursed at.
Now, part of the reason why I picked the Warriors in this series, and Warriors in 6 was, I think, the smartest pick, the right pick was the Warriors in 6, is because, I thought they can do the ISO ball. You could see, anyone who had watched these teams knew how this series was going to look. Like, this was what was going to happen. And the Warriors with Durant, this is why they got Durant. We can do the one-on-one stuff as well as the Rockets. Maybe not, it's not our bread and butter, so we'll do it 90% as well. And we're so skilled at our motion offense and our cuts and our slips and our elaborate stuff that even against a defense that's going to switch everything, and even against a defense that spent an entire year practicing switching everything just for this series, we're going to get 20 points a game out of all that, whatever it is. I don't know. I just made up a number. Out of all that fancy stuff, we're still going to break it every now and then. And then we'll ISO, and then a Steph avalanche will happen. Like, they can just beat you in enough different ways. And I think the only exciting part let me take that back. The second most exciting part of Game 3, other than Steph going bananas in the third quarter, was the Warriors getting super creative and super elaborate with all of their off-ball fun stuff and starting to break Houston a little bit because it was like a relief to the monotony of everything else.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. I mean, Durant is your weapon of last resort, right? That's not the go-to. They're not. The preference is not just to throw it to Kevin Durant and watch him just eat up every mismatch, which is almost everybody in front of him. But But that should be the escape valve. That should be the safety, not the go-to for them. I don't know. It's been simultaneously interesting and dull. And yeah, it sucks when we spend an entire season going, wow, there's actually going to be a real rival to the Warriors now. There will be some suspense in the NBA. The Warriors will be favored, but hey, the Rockets have a real shot, and now we've got a series that it's not because it's lopsided in the Warriors' favor. It's just that the games have been lopsided. And now we've got another wild card in Iguodala's injury, so we'll see what happens.
He is now. We are recording this at 3:05 Eastern time, so the game I'm going to assume starts at 9. I haven't looked at tip-off time.
Too late. Whatever it is, it's late. It's later than it should be, and the tip-off will actually be like 23 minutes after the listed time on ESPN.com.
I can't decide when some games sneak up on you and they tip at like 8:02.
Yes.
I don't know the rhyme or reason to that.
No, and I've gotten lulled into this because, like, all right, in my household, I do the dishes, right? That's my deal. We finish dinner.
You're a hero. You're a hero.
You know what? This broke very easy when we first started dating because my wife loves to cook. I hate cooking. I suck at cooking. We would starve if I were the cook. So, but I also had I was a dishwasher, like a busboy and dishwasher in high school. So like the dishes are my thing. I'm down with I put on my headphones. I listen to the Lowe Post. I listen to Bill Simmons' podcast. It's very zen.
Okay.
But now I'm like, oh, the game, it says 8. I know what 8 means 8:17 or something. And then every so often, yes, I go to the TV and now it's like the score's already like 12-4 or something. I don't know what's going on.
You can record games now on something called the DVR. So if you care about how it got to 12-4, you can watch that.
Sounds really complicated.
And then catch up, fast forward through the commercials. It's revolutionary technology.
Yeah, but then if I get on Twitter, the people are
get
reacting
off
to
Twitter.
stuff.
The solution to everything is get off Twitter.
Fair point.
Just get off.
You're right.
Listeners, you know, especially at this busy time of year, I love anything that can save me time, and SeatGeek is the best time saver for buying tickets to anything, including NBA playoff games, comedy shows, Broadway shows. They helped me get tickets to Hamilton, of all things. Buying tickets used to be an ordeal. How many secondary market websites do I have to visit? Am I missing a deal? Oh my God, did I forget that one? All of a sudden, 2 hours has gone by. SeatGeek streamlines that into like 90 seconds. It collates the entire secondary market into one place. It is an easy-to-use, color-coded system. Green dots for good deals, red dots for not as good deals. How much is this price below market? How much is it over market? Where are the seats? Are they obstructed view? Everything is clickable, visual, easy to use. Every purchase is fully guaranteed, so you can shop for tickets on SeatGeek with confidence. It should be your go-to app for everything. Best of all, my listeners get $20 off their first SeatGeek purchase. $20 can actually be a significant chunk of a ticket to pretty much anything. All you need to do, download the SeatGeek app, enter promo code LOWE, L-O-W-E, my last name, the name of this podcast. That's promo code LOWE. Bam, $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase.
Washing my nose, oh yeah.
I'm a shower curtain, and I do one thing, keep water from leaking everywhere. So you see why I feel useless compared to Geico, who does so much more. Like, not only could Geico save you money, but they've been around for over 75 years. And they give you 24/7 access online, over the phone, or on the Geico app. And they've got a 97% customer satisfaction rating. They do all this while I have to listen to this chucklehead. Oh, good, he stopped.
Washing my toes.
Oh, great, an encore.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
You could see this coming to this degree. In 2015, I wrote a column for Grantland.com, defunct now.
Although the sign outside the door still says
this is the 538 Grantland studio.
I love that.
It's just a piece of paper. It's not a sign. It's just a piece of paper stuck up against the wall. The headline of the column, May 26, 2015, so almost exactly 3 years ago, we interrupt this eulogy for the post-up game to bring you its rebirth. And it was all about how all of these skills that we say are dying, this one was focused on post-ups. If the more teams switch, the more these skills are going to come back into vogue and it focused on Draymond Green, who's not a good post-up player, but can post up just enough that when the Rockets, because this was the conference finals 3 years ago, switched like Jason Terry's in the photo I'm looking at right now, a little guard on him, he could take him to the block and score. And then you'd have to double him and he could pass, and it was all about post-back. Like, you could see this coming, and I do think NBA stars are creative enough that they're interesting to watch in any setting. That's why, to me, Cousins, the fully actualized version of Cousins, is so fascinating as an antidote to the switching, because now you're talking about a guy who can just bulldoze everybody and pass if he's engaged. And Durant, to your point, Durant ISOs as the last resort. My other favorite thing from Game 3 was, what do you have, 6 assists, 4 assists, 5 assists, whatever. He had a lot of assists after having 1 combined in the first 2 games. He ISO'd to drive and kick. And when you find that balance, like, it still is interesting to watch, and there's still a lot of stylistic diversity in the league. Like Houston, it took 3 rounds for Houston to come across a team who wanted to switch everything against them. Minnesota didn't want to do it. That series feels like 8 months ago. Utah didn't want to do it. That they have Gobert. And so there is a lot of stylistic diversity, but it's interesting that at the absolute apex of basketball, this is how it looks. And I just wonder sort of if more teams become that style, because that's what's going to happen. I wonder what the sort of is the next offensive counter, just more post-up play, better ISO play, more teams that try to do what the Warriors do, but what the Warriors do with all the slips and cuts and screens is effective largely because the guys doing it are literally 3 of the greatest shooters in the history of the world.
Yeah. And everything that we talk about, the success rate is based on the talent of the guys you have doing it. That the Rockets are not some new model of, hey, listen, you don't have to go with all this ball movement and everything else. You can ISO guys now, because if teams switch, you can no. You can't punish them if you don't have James Harden and Chris Paul. You have the guy who, as Mike D'Antoni often refers to him, the greatest isolation player in the history of the game. I think statistically is how he backs that up. But whether you believe it or not, James Harden is just incredible in that context.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
If James Harden and Kevin Durant switch places, Mike D'Antoni would be calling Kevin Durant the best offensive player in the history of the game.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Mike, not afraid to go the hyperbole route with anybody he's ever coached.
I love that he said the pressure is on the Warriors tonight. Hey, no, it's not. If you lose, you're down 3-1, buddy. It's over. Like, the pressure's on you.
And you're the team with 65 wins that had the best record in the NBA. Mike's great. But, yeah, look, the isolation, I'm not, like, this is not an indication that all of a sudden isolation is going to come roaring back because the adjustment to all of the three-point shooting and all the pick and roll was to switch everything, and now the switching has opened up the possibility for more isolation and post-ups. Like, okay, yes, if you've got a great isolation player or a great post-up player, if you're going to average, 0.91 points per possession on your isolations or on your post-ups, whatever, then no, that's not going to be the successful way forward. But to your point, the hand-wringing that people had within the last couple of years about the whole league is going, with the analytics movement, everything's just going to be threes and layups and free throws, and it's going to be really boring. No, there is still, to your point, a diversity of attacks out there, and teams are having to be creative in part because they don't all have the same talent. And so they have to try to adapt to what they have. And a guy who we thought of as this incredible basketball purist in Mike D'Antoni himself has adapted.
And there were people who Cleveland-Boston has largely been reduced on one end of the floor to trying to get Terry Rozier onto LeBron James and posting up that matchup. And that's a form of what we're talking about. But LeBron has played that way for forever, for years and years and years. And I like watching that because he's one of the 3 greatest passers or 4 greatest passers, whatever you want to rank him, ever. So he gets the ball on the block, and he's got all of these fun diagonal angles to play with. Is he going to pass in? Is he going to pass across the court? That's to me more interesting than Harden dribbling 14 times at the very top of the key when he essentially has 2 options: step back 3 or drive and kick somewhere. It's less. LeBron is more unpredictable down there, so I don't mind watching that.
Yeah, I agree. And again, just the aesthetics of it all. I don't enjoy. I have nothing against the Houston Rockets. Let me be very, very clear. I don't enjoy watching them much. Especially don't enjoy watching them much the further and further they go into isolation ball. I don't enjoy watching Harden pound the ball, waiting to just, cross over his guy 17 times, or looking for his opening. And it's just not, to me, it's just not as interesting. It's not as fun to watch.
See, I don't mind. I'm like at a B minus watchability rankings with the Rockets because Harden is a genius passer. He plays angles really well. His timing is really good. It's just sort of top, middle, down every time. So it's like he's going to drive and kick to a shooter, or he's going to lob to Capella, or it's going to be a layup. And it's less sort of geometrically unpredictable. It's more geometrically predictable than what LeBron does. But I don't mind watching it.
I don't hate it. I'm just saying if however many games are on a given night, however many different styles you could queue up, however many different stars you might watch, that's not the top of my list.
But to what you said before was, about the diversity of attacks and the switching and all this, there is a certain, and again, maybe it's just that Houston is a really good switching defense, like really, really good. But, if you said it won't all be all isolations and post-ups and all that, if you don't have guys who can do that, you become kind of what happened to the Jazz in the second round, where, with the exception of one game where some of their tactics caught the Rockets off guard, they just couldn't score points.
Yeah.
And Mitchell is not quite ready to be that guy. He's their best option at it. But, all of a sudden, guys like Joe Ingles who thrive in pick and roll, big man drops, I've got a little space to play with, that space is gone, and, they just didn't have anybody who could do anything with that.
Yeah. No, it's that cruel what if of, what if they had Donovan Mitchell and Gordon Hayward were still there, or just somebody else with that kind of skill set? I mean, their ability to compete in that series is not so much about. It's partially about the fact that Donovan Mitchell's young, but he plays like a veteran already, and the fact is they just didn't have that other guy. Everybody needs that other guy. You need the second scorer. Harden needed Chris Paul to come there to get the Rockets to this level. At some point Utah will get that second guy, presumably.
LeBron needed Kyle Korver. After we've been waiting all these years for Kyle Korver. I don't think, and again, it's 3:15 now, EST. I don't think the Rockets were
EST or DST?
I don't know, whatever, Howard, okay. I don't think the Rockets were as bad in Game 3 as the score indicated. I actually thought they played a pretty good first half. With the exception of the end of the first quarter, when they let a little sort of random Warriors 11-0 run happen. Missed a lot of shots at the rim, but I thought they tried some smart stuff. Their defense was pretty good in the half court. The Warriors tried to hedge with Curry instead of switching him onto Harden, and the Rockets were surprisingly adept at, when Curry leaped off Ariza.
Either or both.
Ariza made plays rolling to the rim, and now those are only worth 2 points, which I think is why Golden State is is not devastated that those are effective. But the Rockets look pretty good, and then the Steph avalanche happened, and then the Rockets just kind of gave up, as epitomized by whatever befell James Harden when Sean Livingston was bringing the ball up the right wing in the fourth quarter, and just. I don't know what happened to James Harden. He was just gone. He turned to stone, and Sean Livingston went in and dunked, and it was pretty amazing. So I'm optimistic. Houston is going to put up a good game tonight. Everyone thinks the series is over. Warriors go up 3-1, and it's over. I think the Warriors will win tonight. They're at home. They have not lost a home game in the playoffs in forever. I think Houston's good. I think this is going to end our streak of really terrible games. How about that? Howard Beck?
I like that prediction. And of course, if you're wrong about that prediction, everybody on Twitter tomorrow will be saying you're an idiot, and this is why we should never predict anything. That's you
and Windhorst are on the.
You know what? And the thing is, I'll still do it. I'll find myself, but I'm not tweeting out my series by series picks or any of that stuff. The second, it doesn't matter what you do. The second you're wrong, everybody out there thinks that's the big gotcha moment that they have to screw you with. I had we do these spotlight videos. It's like a 60-second. It's not even 60 seconds. It's like 52 seconds I have to spit out something, and I talk really, really fast in my best New York cadence, and it's always just some kind of premise. It's a quick hit thing. It goes on Instagram and on our website. And I had something like the Utah Jazz are the team no one wants to face in the playoffs. And it's the proverbial the team you don't want to face in the first round kind of thing, right? Like this lower seed that was so strong that, hey, that's the team you don't want. It's a proverbial thing, right? This is just one of those little sayings we have. The team no one wants to face.
Yeah.
It's not literally like that. We know there are better teams. The number of people who were responding to that video with, oh, well, that would be news to the Houston Rockets. Oh, have you seen the Golden State Warriors? And then in recent days, I've seen people spitting it back at me. This is weeks ago, by the way. This thing was like months ago. People tweeting about, well, this didn't age well.
I'm going to tweet it at you tonight. Say,
Screw you.
just FYI, this didn't age well.
People suck.
People are pretty bad.
And again, to your point, I should just stay off Twitter.
People are pretty bad. I think Houston's going to put up a fight tonight.
I agree.
Chris Paul needs to make shots.
I also think the last, whatever we have left in the Cavs-Celtics series, whether that's 2 games or 3, I think is going to be really tight. I think it's going to be heart attack time all across the board.
I will say, if the Warriors win tonight, we are staring at a Warriors bloodbath the rest of the way because no, they're not going to lose a 3-1 lead. Whoa, that sounded familiar, actually, as it came out of my mouth. They're not going to lose a 3-1 lead in this series against the Houston Rockets.
In 2018.
And the Celtics, I think, would put up a nice 5-game fight against the Warriors, but you would really feel the lack of firepower offensively without Kyrie and Hayward. And, look, LeBron is LeBron. It's hard to see the Cavaliers hanging in that series at all.
Famous last words, I know, but for any of us who are covering the finals, I feel like this is one of those years where it's actually safe to look up when is Game 5 scheduled.
Stop! Don't say it! Don't say it! Stop right there! Stop right there!
Can I knock on this fake wood laminate table?
I don't know if this is fake wood, my friend. They spent a lot of money on this table.
I'm not sure.
Anyone who runs a business listening to this knows that hiring people can be a huge pain in the butt. You have to check all of these websites where people post their resumes or you post your jobs. Did you forget to post it on this website, on that website? ZipRecruiter solves that entire problem for you. It scours the entire pool of candidates and takes your job and matches it with qualified candidates. It learns what you're looking for, identifies people on its own with the right experience, and proactively invites them to apply for your job. 80% of employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. ZipRecruiter even spotlights the strongest applications you receive so you don't have to sift through a million. It will say, here's 6 that are really good for whatever reason. The right candidates are out there, and ZipRecruiter is how you find them. And right now, my listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. You literally cannot get it for any cheaper than that unless they start paying you. All you have to do is go to ZipRecruiter.com/lowpost, LOWE post, the name of this podcast. That's ZipRecruiter.com/lowpost. ZipRecruiter is the smartest way to hire. Do you think Mike D'Antoni, he talks in your story a little bit about Carmelo, he and his wife Laurel, who is delightful. I've never met her. I really want to be. I kind of want to be her best friend. Every time she's quoted, I want to hang out with her.
Quick aside: the absolute best story involving Laurel that has been written was by Tim Kuhn in ESPN Magazine.
It was like a year or two ago. Yeah.
With amazing photos of Mike and Laurel from back in Italy, and Mike in his short shorts, and then a wedding photo or a couple of those, and you get the full dynamic of those two. Like if you whatever interest you may have in Mike D'Antoni the person, and also Laurel D'Antoni, like that story captured them perfectly because they're just like talking to each other all the time, and Laurel is her own force to be reckoned with in that household, no question.
He talks about the notion that now, this ISO heavy system in Houston, well, this is the same guy who couldn't coach Carmelo Anthony and Kobe Bryant because they wanted to ISO so much. Now, we can talk about the qualitative differences between James Harden and Chris Paul and Carmelo Anthony and late career Kobe Bryant. But he does say in your story, he's quoted as saying, I've lost that, meaning this sort of the belief that basketball needs to be played a certain way, I think is what he's implying.
Kind of the religious adherence that he had.
I've lost that. And Daryl, you quote Daryl Morey saying, I think at some level it probably pains him to be playing this way. Do you think he's changed in terms of being less rigid? Do you think that he's changed in terms of, boy, I've learned the hard way in the two biggest markets in the NBA that if I clash with a star player, I'm going to lose. So I better just play the way they want to play?
I wondered all of that, and I asked those questions open-endedly. But the reason that I was interested in the story or pursuing this in the first place, other people had written about how, the Rockets' offense had gone so ISO heavy and how it was different than what Mike had run in the past. But I hadn't seen it really too much through the prism of whether Mike himself had evolved, and if so, why? Was this just a matter of convenience and necessity, or was there something else at work there? I got to know Mike a little bit when he was still in Phoenix. I obviously covered him for his 4+ years or whatever it was in New York when I was covering the Knicks. And so to me, it was really startling. And having read Jack McCallum's book and having, I was just really, I wanted to ask that question myself. What changed? Did it change? Have you philosophically changed, or is this just the convenience of the roster you have and the players you have? And to your point,
job security linked to that.
Sure. By the way, a year ago, I had written about Mike and James and Daryl and that partnership, and about how there was this perfect alignment from top to bottom within the Rockets organization, bringing in Mike, and they were running an offense that you would have said was visually much closer to what he's always run. It only changed when Chris Paul got there this year. So this was a striking, sudden change. So what among all of those factors is it? I don't think it's necessarily like as cynical as just like job security, or I've got to bend to my star, or defying Carmelo and Kobe got me run out of 2 teams. I don't think it's as simple as that. I do think that Mike, like anybody, as he's gotten closer to the end of his career than the beginning, and he is often mused about the idea that this will be his last stop. He hedged on that when I asked him a couple weeks ago, but he did say that before, that he thought this would be it. I think that there probably a certain reality sets in that, listen, I want to win. I want, like Mike's like anybody else. Mike's competitive as hell. Dude wants to win. And he got to the conference finals twice with the Suns. And we can go back down the rabbit hole of if not for Joe Johnson's broken face, and if not for suspensions of Amari Stoudemire and Boris Diaw, you never know whether they would have gotten past the Spurs. So, Mike now has a team that won 65 games playing a certain style, and 2 future Hall of Famers in the backcourt who thrive in a certain style. He'd be foolish at this point not to cater to that within certain limits. And his defense of this evolution that I perceive is for him to say, no. Listen, we still shoot a ton of threes. In fact, way more threes than my son's teams ever did. Our pace, while relative to the rest of the league may be low, I think is pretty close actually to what the Suns did, which is just one of those weird things where if you're looking at the raw averages versus just relative to the rest of the league, this stuff changes quickly. But as far as he's concerned, it's still about pick and roll, spreading the floor, and then what happens from there is what changes, because you have James Harden running it instead of Steve Nash. So that's where it becomes different. And also his thing was, listen, we were having so much success running essentially the old Mike D'Antoni stuff that people started switching everything on us. And about a third of the way into the season, halfway through the season, everybody was switching everything all the time on them, it seemed. And their answer to that was, well, then fine, we're just going to punish the hell out of you with James Harden isolations or Chris Paul isolations, which is fine. So I did ask him, I said, well, how is that different from, I said, you didn't want Carmelo isolating. That was Carmelo's big thing. So his response, which I did not put in the story because I was trying not to go down too many tangents that would drag this thing and make it too long, but he says, and this is about Carmelo specifically, he says the difference is that ISO led to 2-point shots. Our ISOs lead to threes and layups. It's a big difference. When you hold the ball, again, like he's not saying Carmelo's name, you know who he's talking about. When you hold the ball and you take one dribble and shoot, that's the worst shot in basketball. Even if it was pretty good, it's not going to be good enough. And the numbers will tell you that. I don't care how good the guy is. You take those shots right there, you're not good enough. So his point being that with especially the benefit in 2018 that we didn't have necessarily in 2011 when he first got Carmelo, we have the benefits of the numbers that'll show, hey, points per possession, this is a crappy shot. Your pounding mid-range contested shot on average is not getting anywhere near the bang for the buck that James Harden's isolations are right now. So to his point, the math is in his favor by a lot.
Yeah. The notion that, well, he was wrong for not trying this with Carmelo, it's not even apples to oranges. It's like apples to broccoli. I mean, it's Carmelo wants to jab step and take a 20-footer. That's a good shot. It's an okay shot for him, and it's a good shot in the last 30 seconds of a game. When in a lot of circumstances you just need a 2. You don't need a 3. You don't need the optimal shot. You just need a good shot against a really dialed-in defense. It is a way worse shot than a James Harden layup with shooters around him and a James Harden 3 and all that. It is interesting, though, that the D'Antoni-ism of the offense gets dialed back in the playoffs every year. I tweeted this yesterday. 61% of Houston's threes in the regular season were catch-and-shoot threes. In the playoffs, that's down to 49%.
Wow.
And in the conference finals, it's down to 41%. And this same thing happened in the playoffs last year. Like teams just scheme, whether it's the way the Spurs played them last year, which is we're going to park our big men at the rim and let Harden drive and stay home on shooters, or the switching stuff. Teams just aren't going to let the shooters get open catch and shoot looks. And it's interesting. Like, it works great in the regular season. 61% of their shots are catch and shoot threes. That's a lot. They were second in the league, I think, behind Brooklyn. You have to go through the regular season now knowing it's not going to be like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that does to the way you start preparing for the playoffs. Maybe they were prepared anyway. As you said, they're playing this ISO style. It's really interesting. I just hope we get a good game tonight.
Amen.
Because these games have been just not good. Really not good. I wonder if the league is concerned. Probably not. The ratings continue to be good.
No, the ratings are massive as usual. Every day I'm getting the tweets, in rapid fire with the NBA PR Twitter account, either retweeting ESPN or Turner with all the ratings info, and it sounds like they're doing just fine.
And we're gonna get a finals matchup that will draw. You know, whether it's Boston, I think LeBron still draws better than anybody, obviously,
yes.
But Boston is a good draw.
For sure. And, as you are, I'm sure I'm getting the question constantly now of we're back to is it good for the NBA or bad for the NBA if it's just, if it's Warriors, Cavs again? Or if
I gotta say, I don't care really.
No.
But I am. I would like to spend time in a different place.
So
I'd like to stay in a different hotel and go to some different restaurant. I mean, there are good I could go to different restaurants in Cleveland and stuff. You know what I mean? I'd like to walk different streets.
Yes.
I'd like to maybe take Amtrak. If I could sneak a day at home, I don't know, something. Logan to LaGuardia, something.
Well, Boston is great for you and I because it's for you and me, I should say, because at minimum those Delta shuttle flights are every hour. You can get back in between, like on off days, even in between games in Boston, but especially when it changes cities. Easy to come home, unpack, repack, kiss the wife and kid, and so I'm all for that. And look, for storylines to change, I think broadly for the NBA, not just for reporters, for the fans too. You kind of want to see the scenery change a little bit, different matchups, different storylines, so everything's not just about. But we also both know, like LeBron versus the Warriors, even if that seems like a dull rerun, is going to do bigger numbers, I would think, ratings-wise, than Celtics Warriors. Even though the Celtics have a huge fan base and they're fun to watch, they're an interesting team. It's not the same as having the greatest player of his generation trying again to beat one of the most monstrous, talented lineups we've ever seen.
Now, there is a universe in which that series gets interesting, and the universe is Iguodala's injury lingers and becomes a real thing. Steph has a knee setback and plays like first half Steph game 3 instead of second half crazy Steph game 3. And I don't know, something else happens. But if the Warriors are healthy, the way the Cavs have just sort of, other than the Raptors who just fold at the very sight of LeBron, the way they've sort of just, thrown away games and quit in games and looked just like in mud so often, it's just hard to see them. I mean, Kyle Korver is literally, on a lot of nights, their third best player.
No,
it has been their second best player on some nights.
It's a really strange thing, and it's not what we could have seen coming. The only question before was, do they have a third best player? Is it just like, LeBron, massive drop off to Kevin Love, and then massive drop off to just everyone else?
Well, I think one of the things we were reminded of in these two games in Cleveland is that if they have any hope of doing anything serious in the final, first of all, getting to the finals, and I picked them to win the series in 6. Against Boston. And I think they are going to win the series. I think last night, I said this on Bill's podcast, I said whoever wins game 4 is going to win the series. Because I think Cleveland will get a game in Boston, whether it's 5 or 7, and win 6 at home. But to do that and to make any noise at all in the finals against the Warriors, George Hill has to be their third best player, and it can't be close. And he was really good in the Cleveland games. I'm looking at the stats right here, and part of it is just he was involved. They ran a lot of George Hill pick and rolls. In fact, they ran 50. George Hill took 59 ball screens combined in games 3 and 4. LeBron took 57. Now LeBron's the screener a lot more. Well, actually, that may not even be true. And And in games 1 and 2, the disparity was 64 ball screens for LeBron, 41 for George Hill. And George Hill's numbers are like in a very dark shade of blue, which means bad on the second spectrum of stuff I'm looking at in games 1 and 2. In games 3 and 4, they're very nice pumpkin-y orange, which is good. Did you make a pick for this series?
Publicly, no. You know what? Actually, no. I think when I had...
Well, you just told your daughter privately.
Told my cats. No, I think when I had...
You have cats?
2, yeah.
What are their names?
God. Georgia, who's 19. And has
my God.
Yeah. Yeah, she's this crazy, cranky-ass old calico.
Okay.
We've had her since we were living in Hermosa Beach.
Calico's like Garfield, right?
No, that would be a tabby.
Oh.
Calico is like with the patches of
black and
white
orange
and peach and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Georgia has been with us since Hermosa Beach. Like when my wife and I were dating. Like she predates the marriage.
Who had her? Whose was she?
We adopted her together, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. She was like a rescue cat. And
okay. That's nice. My sister did that. They have a cat, Thule.
Yeah.
Thule the cat. She's gonna be so excited that Thule got a shout out. Thule is a I think a rescue adoptee.
And then our second cat, the younger one, is Selena. She's we believe a Maine Coon. She's a long hair.
Okay.
I don't know what qualifies as Maine Coon of that particular breed, but she's a long hair. So she's just like this big, puffy black fur ball.
Is there hair all over your house?
Oh yeah, it's a disaster.
We're never gonna have pets. I've been told it's not gonna happen. No. You know what? And honestly, when I see the people walking their dogs in the winter, I don't want a dog anymore.
Oh no. Yeah. That's like even my friends who have dogs that I love. I'm ambidextrous on the dog cat thing, right? I don't believe in this dog people cat people thing. I know.
Yeah, I like both. I like both. They're nice.
But
we grew up with cats.
A dog in this city, and we're on a 3rd floor walk up, so you got to walk them at all hours. You got to get up in the middle of the night. You got to go out in the snow. 3 flights of stairs. Forget it. Too much work. Plus, cats we have litter boxes. They take care of themselves.
You know what I would like? Maybe fish, like an aquarium. If I were rich, I would get one of those super fancy aquariums where people where they have to come to your house. Like you can't even do it. You're not even qualified to feed.
I want
these
an
fish.
entire. If I'm doing that, I want an entire wall.
Yeah,
the wall is the aquarium. Like you see through to the other room, and there's a fish in between you and the kitchen.
And like once every 3 days, somebody from the fancy rich person's fish place has to come in and be like, "Sir, I'm the fish technician. I'm going to feed your fish." You're like, "Yes, come on in."
And scrape the algae and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
No, I had tropical fish for a while when I was like in college, and but if you're going to do this, Zach, you got to go the tropical fish route, not the saltwater fish route, because then you have to like adjust levels and salinity in the water and all this crazy. Like that's way too much work. So go with a tropical fish. You just fill it out of your tap.
You know what I wouldn't have as a pet? Rabbit. I don't believe in pet rabbits. Rabbits are gross. Have you seen their eyes? Like some of their pink, the rabbits with like the red scary eyes. Not interested.
They poop a lot.
Just all over your house.
And they chew through everything. Electrical cords, clothes, shoes.
Like I'd rather have a guinea pig than a rabbit.
Yeah. I'm down on both of them.
Would you ever have a snake?
Oh, no. I don't. The reptile thing I don't get at all.
When we go to the zoo, my wife won't even go into the reptile hall.
Really? Like the one in the Bronx Zoo?
Yeah, won't go in.
Wow. I mean, they're behind glass and stuff.
You're not going to do anything to you. I've stressed that. We've lost. I love the zoo.
Oh, yeah. We used to go all the time. When my daughter was younger, she's 12 now, so she's kind of aged out of that. And when she was smaller, and when I had my free New York Times car that I had to give up when I left the Times, and we could get, because Brooklyn is a hole to the Bronx. On the subway would take you like 17 hours.
Well, now there'd be 4 signal malfunctions and a sick passenger on every train ride.
But we would drive. We would be there, 3-4 times a year. We had the full membership. We loved that place. I miss the zoo. I gotta get back to the zoo.
Love the zoo. Big fan of the zoo.
Instead, we can go to the finals.
If I could cover the zoo, that would be fun. If there were just like a zoo, ESPN.com/zoo.
I want to see the Zach Lowe deep dive on zoo analytics, zoo design. Layout. You could get into the logos. You're a big logo guy.
Back when I was searching for direction in life, one of my ideas was, what if I started a funny blog where all I did was link to and then comment on stories about animals either escaping or behaving badly? Because anytime there's an escaped animal, I'm all in. I'm all in for
like
the escape.
The
animal.
alligator stuff in Florida scares the hell out of me every time. That stuff's freaky. How do people live there?
It breaks my heart that right before I got the newspaper job in Stamford, Connecticut, there was a woman who had a chimp as a pet, and the chimp would like ride in the car. It would ride in the back seat and put its seatbelt on, and like one day, at a red light, the chimp unbuckled its seatbelt, got out of the car, and it was like chimp on the loose in Stamford. Was like the all day long. People couldn't find the chimp. And by the way, chimps are no joke. A chimp, it will kill you. Yes. A chimp will literally kill you.
Yes.
So it's actually not funny, but it's just funny when an animal is on the loose. It just is. So I thought, okay, anyone who is on the road a lot knows about that horrible feeling when you realize you haven't booked your hotel for tomorrow night or the day after, and you feel like you are going to get gouged or save money by staying in a flea bag. You just imagine that all the good hotels are either sold out or they're going to charge you an arm and a leg because you're booking at the last minute. And that's actually not really how it works. If you use the Hotel Tonight app, you can wait until the last minute and still score a good deal at a cool hotel, because that's how this works. Hotel Tonight has all these rooms that are not used. They hook you up. They get you an actual good deal at an actual good hotel. And if you're not a last-minute booker, this problem doesn't apply to you. You can still use Hotel Tonight to book way in advance. Book your vacation like a normal person. It's an app. It's easy to use. You can book a room in like 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 if you're slow like me. So download the Hotel Tonight app and start booking better plans for your work, your personal life, or whatever. Do you have any thoughts on Boston-Cleveland after last night? Anything you're watching for Game 5? I'm going to Game 5 tomorrow. I'm getting on that Amtrak. What's interesting to you?
By the way, Amtrak, really? Like, it's faster to just jump the Delta shuttle.
I like, just get me on a train, put my headphones on, I can write. I like the peace and quiet.
Yeah. I like the Biscoff cookies. So, this is where we differ. So you asked earlier if I had picked this, and I predicted the series to my cats and my daughter. I actually did predict it, I think, on my own podcast with Thorpe a couple weeks back, and I said Cavs in 7, in part because I just love the idea of LeBron in a Game 7 at the Garden. He's had big games there before.
Some of his very biggest.
Some of his biggest, some of his most spectacular, most memorable. I absolutely don't think it's a stretch at all to think that the Cavs could win a Game 7 there, because it's LeBron and because that's in that pressure cooker. That's where I think you start to see the youth pop out in the Celtics. Because I could see the next 2 games holding the form. I can see Boston coming back, winning on their home court, goes back to Cleveland. LeBron's facing elimination. No way he's going down. He wins again. We're in a Game 7 at the Garden. I could see that. I'm kind of rooting for that. I think that would be fun. Beyond that, your George Hill observation is the one that I feel like is the most relevant thing here. They need somebody else. And Kevin Love was not great.
No.
My point all season in referring to this Cavs team as the worst supporting cast LeBron has had since 2009-10, the first time he left Cleveland, is that there is no Robin to his Batman. And they still don't have that. But if you get the very best of Kevin Love and or best of George Hill, you have some semblance of a team now. And they've now excised all the useless people. They've just stuck Rodney Hood on the bench.
Well, Larry Nance is back, baby.
Well,
Larry Nance is back.
Larry Nance is back, but Rodney Hood is just done.
I like how they were like, yeah, we don't care that Rodney Hood didn't come in the game. Tyler's like, no big deal. Rodney Hood, as first reported by Jason Lloyd. Oh, but by the way, garbage time? You don't even get in now in garbage time, buddy. Okay?
No, garbage time is beneath you, so you're now beneath our rotation. How many millions does he cost himself?
Very many millions.
And so Jordan Clarkson is now like bit player. By the way, quick own up. It was on this very podcast some months ago that I made probably my worst, and I don't do a lot, I'm not Mr. Hot Take. My worst take of the season was, you know what, at his best, Jordan Clarkson, maybe he's like your poor man's J.R. Smith. He's irrational confidence.
I hope I chastised you.
I think you just looked at me very disapprovingly, as I recall. Okay. I felt like just
look, JR you just don't know what the hell you're going to get out of JR. And you just really don't know.
I thought Jordan Clarkson would be one of those guys who he catches fire every so often. He's got irrational confidence in himself, and that could carry you for, a quarter or something. I thought we would see that. And he's a guy who could handle the ball, and they needed somebody else who could do things with the ball in his hands. My bad. Jordan Clarkson's not even good enough to be a poor man's J.R. Smith. George Hill. It's got to be George Hill.
I am fascinated by the chess match of how Boston responds to LeBron just hunting Rozier wherever he goes. And the most obvious adjustment that they have made off and on, including especially last night, was putting him on J.R. Smith instead of George Hill. So if you're going to use a pick-and-roll partner for LeBron, it's going to be J.R. And they were like, fine, we'll do that too. We'll have J.R. handle the ball so you can't go under screens, or we'll have LeBron handle the ball so he can just post up directly, no entry pass necessary. And linked to that, and by the way, Boston's defensive numbers are good when Rozier's on the floor. It feels like they're awful. They're actually good with Rozier on the floor and like abysmally terrible otherwise. And I don't think that has anything to do with Rozier, but it's not like they're getting lit up.
Yeah.
And otherwise, of course, everyone now is paying attention to the scram switches they do when Rozier is stuck on Bron. And when they post up Bron, they tag Rozier out and send someone else scurrying in. And I feel like Cleveland has started to figure out ways to beat that. Whether it's posting up way on towards the sideline so that scram guy has to run like across the court and can't get there in time and everyone's all screwed up, and some other things. LeBron had some pass fakes that really confused the Celtics. It was, that chess match is interesting. And, I wonder if now Game 5 is when we see Baines start. I don't think that's a particularly good answer for Boston, which is why they haven't done it yet. I think that Tristan Thompson has really changed the series in terms of just erasing Horford and making them even think that this is maybe something they should do, because I don't think it's a good answer. But now I can see them trying it. Their starting lineup is now -12 for the series. Baines and Horford, after a very strong showing last night, are +10. Baines just has to play because Boston is out of players. Boston has literally 7 guys basically that are playing every game. And I can see the school of thought being like, let's just play Baines when we know Tristan's going to be on the floor for long periods of time and try to rebalance the roster so we can bring a wing off the bench who's not Ojale, who we don't trust to play every game anyway. That doesn't strike me as a particularly interesting or inspiring move.
No.
And by the way, Baines was great last night. He plays lots of energy. He dunked twice. He's flying all over the floor doing Bainesy things. Joel Embiid's tweeting trash talk at him. It was like Baines was good.
No, he's fun. Like he's been one of the fun elements of this series. But this underscores something that, all season we talked about the fact that the Celtics just didn't have much of a bench, and then it got worse when Kyrie goes down.
Everyone's hurt. People forgot everyone's hurt.
So
even Tice would be a useful guy to have around.
But it points to this, which is, we hate to like fast forward on this stuff, but it's really intriguing watching this Celtics team, however this series ends up, thinking eventually Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving are back in this mix. And what does that do to all these guys? How does it reshuffle the deck? Where do they all go? How does it all fit together? And is this all of a sudden a 67-win team next season? There's been at least a little bit of chatter I've heard from rival teams about, this is not going to be sustainable. They're going to, it's untenable. If Gordon Hayward comes back, who's going to the bench? You're not going to play all 3 of him, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum.
Sure you are. Yeah, by the way, you are.
Yeah, by the way, you are. But I've heard people speculating on that already, kind of like I think feeling like maybe one of those guys shakes loose. Maybe it's wishful thinking on their part. Or maybe it's just the fact that they don't want to see Celtics start running away with it. And then not the same with, obviously, Kyrie and Rozier, but just that if Rozier is going to be this effective and you've got all this other young talent around him and now that talent's all going to get paid eventually, then what are you going to do with Kyrie's free agency in a year? All the great problems to have, and the Celtics are brilliant with this stuff, and they could solve it all and keep everybody, but eventually you're not keeping everybody.
Like
short term, they can keep everybody.
Yeah, for the next year to year and a half, they can keep everyone. Smart is the interesting one, because if Smart gets paid right away, then it becomes an interesting math equation.
Yeah.
If he takes his qualifying offer, which if I had to bet on one possible outcome of his free agency this summer, that's what I would bet on. I wouldn't feel good about the bet, but if you force me, here are 4 different scenarios, pick one. That's the one I would. Pick one is not a good NBA term either. That's the one.
It's a deep cut, right there.
That's the one I would bet on. And that makes their life easier in terms of short term. By the way, Marcus Smart, I've always been a little bit of a Marcus Smart skeptic is too strong of a word, because I really do believe in the power of the Marcus Smart play. Like, he had a couple of hustle plays, deflections, steals last night. Like, I believe that those plays matter more than any statistic can capture.
Yes.
I believe that he's legitimately inspirational and inspires his teammates to play harder, and there's an unquantifiable, essential cultural value to that. However, I'd be happy to have Marcus Smart on my team. Through 4 games in the conference finals, he's shooting 11 of 38. 3 of 17 from 3. Taking just awful long twos all the time.
And sometimes late in the game,
And I'm
too.
sorry, I don't care how inspirational you are, how many times you hit the floor. If you're 11 of 38, you're not helping your team win. And he'll do that, and he may go 6 of 9 from 3 in the next game, because that's what Marcus Smart does. He's one of the all-time worst three-point shooters, and he'll have a game like that. Their only game they won against Cleveland last year in the conference finals, Marcus Smart went crazy. He better start going crazy, because he's 11 for 38, and that's a disaster. And 3 of 17 is a disaster, and it's a disaster of the depths that you cannot make up for it with Marcus Smarting all over the floor. You just can't. Yeah, but the other thing I would like to see more of. The Celtics don't do this a lot, and maybe they're afraid of the size disadvantage. I like when they put pick whatever, Brown or Tatum at power forward. So when they put Rozier, Smart, Brown, Tatum, Horford, that lineup has played 7 minutes in this series. It's plus 12. I wonder if they're just afraid to play it against Love, Thompson, LeBron. But I like that. I like that lineup. And boy, has Tristan been good. I still think Cleveland's going to win the series.
I agree.
I've also given up trying to figure them out, because when they lose, they just lay down and die on the floor.
Well,
I mean, it's incredible how all over the place they've been.
And the fact is, look, there was no way to see any of this coming. Tristan Thompson, even the most hardcore Cavs fan, especially the most hardcore Cavs fan, lost belief and faith in Tristan Thompson a long time ago. That he's back to being this actually useful is an upset within the context of this season. That they're getting as much as they are out of 37-year-old Kyle Korver is incredible. The supporting cast had just withered, and the guys that they brought in that were supposed to re-energize them just couldn't sustain it. And that this is a team that was nearly out in the first round, but you and I are sitting here, looking at a tied series, thinking, yeah, they're going to make it back. And by the way, this should not be taken by anybody to support the notion that the Cavs can always flip the switch. This is not that. The old teams could flip the switch because they had LeBron and Kyrie, and those guys could kind of like play possum for a while and then say, oh, it's playoff time, and then go. This is not that. This is a weird series of events and revivals and, cutting a rotation down to 7.2 guys and whatever. It's hard to even know how they're doing this. But
there are games when they don't try hard.
But this is right.
It's crazy. It's the playoffs, and there are games where they just stop trying hard.
Yeah. Somebody. I was there for the game on Saturday night for Game 3, and somebody from the Cavs told me, we only defend when we're making shots. When guys start seeing the ball go through the hoop, and then they just decide to defend, and that's the problem. And so I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And then I went to Korver in the locker room, and I said, hey, what about this theory? And he's like, no, it's the exact opposite. It's like when we defend, then we get easier shots, or it energizes us when we run. We go and we shoot. And
to your point on Tristan, Horford in the last 2 games, 17 shot attempts, 5 assists, 6 free throws. His drives are way down, and that's because the pick and pop stuff is gone. And you see them trying to get him involved in other ways. Like they ran some pin downs for him where he looked like a guard coming off screens and trying to shoot threes, and they ran some pick and rolls with him as the ball handler to try and shake him out of it. Those feel like those are like Horford's versatile enough to do a little bit of that, but that's a net loss for Boston. If you're resorting to that kind of stuff to get Al Horford going, that's not a good sign. However, every time the signs begin to point to a Cleveland resurgence, they take a dump on the floor in the next game. So maybe that's what will happen in Boston. I've given up, and so have the Cavaliers people. I've just given up trying to figure out what they're going to do. Just gave up. I have no idea.
You know what? And in a perverse way, that's fine. The fact that we don't know what the hell's going to happen is a good thing, right? We want suspense. This is not exactly the brand of suspense that we wanted, but not figuring out or having any ability to read what the Cavs are doing or which version of them will show up on a given night. If that's what it takes for us to have some suspense in the postseason, so be it.
I will take a game tonight that does not last 2 hours and 45 minutes and is within 5 in the last 5 minutes.
I'll take a game that starts at the time that it says it's going to start on ESPN.com.
You sound like an old man. Okay. All right, Howard Beck, the D'Antoni story is headlined 7 seconds or more, the remaking and I just made up a word, the remaking and iso ball awakening of Mike D'Antoni, and there is a Warriors piece that you teased right at the opening of this podcast that is coming out shortly.
Maybe Thursday, maybe the start of the finals. I'm not sure.
Ooh, okay.
We'll see. Yeah,
right.
But coming soon to a app near you.
All right, Howard Beck, it's always wonderful to see you. Your work is always second to none, and maybe you should grow an old D'Antoni mustache for the finals. Shave the beard and the goatee and just go mustache. If the Rockets make the finals, that's what you should do.
Because he doesn't have his anymore.
Yeah,
so
someone needs to honor the D'Antoni legacy.
I would do that in homage to Mike. I like Mike enough that I'd do. The only problem, Zach, I cannot possibly get the right level of bushiness and Pringlesness in my mustache that Mike once
I thought you were
had.
going to say you couldn't get spousal approval.
Oh no, my wife never cared. You know what? The number of times I've changed my facial hair in the 20 years, or whatever, that my wife and I have been together, like. I had a goatee when we first met. I had like the 90s goatee, right? I had the Dave Grohl goatee.
Yeah, I've seen photos.
Back then it was the Mark McGuire goatee. She was fine with the goatee, and then eventually I grew it into a beard, and then she was fine with the beard, and then I shaved that off, and she was like, yeah, that's fine. Like, I have no idea what she actually wants in regard to facial hair. She's either completely indifferent or she just doesn't want to say. But in all the time we've been together, whatever version of it, yeah, that's fine.
My daughter,
I should be happy with that.
My daughter will just straight up tell me, "Daddy, shave your beard." Because when I don't shave for 4 or 5 days, it starts getting scruffy. And she said, "Daddy, shave your beard."
My daughter doesn't like change. A gene she obviously got from me, the most change-averse person on earth. When I finally had to get glasses a year ago, I got LASIK 1,000 years ago. Like eventually your vision starts to go a little bit again. So I had to get glasses. She was like just absolutely beside herself about the fact I'm like, no, you look different. Like, I gotta see, but she did not.
It's going to be a hard world for her. She's got to get used to it. Change is the only. Well, so you should be. So are you? Then you should be rooting for Warriors Cavs 4 because you just can have your hotel and your restaurants, and you've been on all the cities. You know how to do it now.
I will always take the Warriors in the finals. I will always take. Bay Area is home for me. That's where I grew up.
It's really nice.
San Francisco's phenomenal. I will take that every time. I like Boston a lot as a city.
See, I'm not gonna. Boston's fine. I don't. I have like a very ambivalent relationship.
Toronto would have been phenomenal, especially for you.
Yeah, it did not work out.
Someday.
Didn't work out for the Raptors.
Someday.
LeBron's going to have to retire for that. It's over. It's over because Boston has now surpassed them when they get everyone healthy. Philly will surpass them. LeBron is still in the East for now. It's over. This was it for
Where are we contemplating going this time next year?
Oh God, let's Golden State and something else. So we'll see.
Likely.
All right, bud. Thanks for everything. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.